hellish days, when life, if it had few pleasures, had no cares. Now life means perplexity. Existence is an entanglement from which only some happy turn of fortune can extricate her. She sits in her old place on the window seat and loosens the long twisted roll of rich brown hair which falls over her bare shoulders like shining drapery. "Goodness!" cries Marion. "How skinny your shoulders have grown!" "Have they?" said Sybil coolly, glancing downwards at the white neck and arms on which the bones are too sharply defined for beauty. "Then we shall look more like sisters when we wear low dresses. Your shoulders were always skinny." Marion is silenced for the moment, and proceeds with the destruction of that elaborate edifice of hair and hair pads which she constructs with infinite pains every morning, even though no one outside her own small family circle is likely to be gratified by the sight thereof. Marion's hair has been washed and doctored to the fashionable pre-Raphaelite colour. It is thick and fluffy and short, only just covering the points of her bony shoulders, and standing out round her head like an exaggerated nimbus. It is not bad hair altogether, and Marion thinks it one of her strong points, like her pre-Raphaelite figure, her low, narrow foot, 18-inch waist, arched eyebrows, white teeth, and other small graces, some of which are the praiseworthy result of patient training. "Do let me see your pretty things, Sybil," the younger sister exclaims presently, twisting one of her yellow tresses in and out of a hairpin. The elder looks up, startled out of profound reverie. "What pretty things?" "Well, you must have something to show me. Presents? Things you have bought out of your salary? I'm sure I should have a lot to show out of £40 a year for 2 years. Glove boxes, sealskin purses, card cases, neckties, lace, gloves, and so on. I dare say that carpet bag is bursting with them." "It is doing nothing of the kind. I found that it was as much as I could do to dress myself decently for Mrs. Hazelton's parties and pay my laundress. Evening dresses are so unprofitable." "They must be, if you have nothing to show out of £80. I never thought you could bring yourself to wear such a dress as that alpaca thing," adds Marion, pointing contemptuously to Sybil's shabby gown hanging on a peg upon the door. "I expected to see you come home quite a woman of fashion." "People who teach unruly children have to take them out walking in all weathers, have not much chance of being fashionably dressed," answers Sybil wearily. "Perhaps if you could contrive to put dress out of your mind for 5 minutes or so, Marion, we might have a little rational conversation." "Oh, very well. Of course I know what an inferior mind mine is. You used to tell me so often enough. But you were once rather fond of talking about dress, and I thought perhaps, if you've nothing to show me, you might like to see my dresses. Not homemade. Miss Eilert has made every one, and a pretty price she has charged me." Marion wrenches open the refractory door of the wardrobe and displays 3 calico-shrouded garments, hanging in a row like sheeted ghosts. One by one she brings forth these treasures, whisking off their covering and displaying each one to Sybil with a dexterous twirl of her arm. A bronze-brown silk, a pale grey with elaborate ruchings of satin, a black silk which stands on end for very richness of fabric. "There," she exclaims, swelling with pride, "I wore the grey, new, at Colonel Stormont's." "At Colonel Stormont's? Is the world coming to an end? Or what convulsion of nature brought you and the Stormonts together?" "I was asked to dinner with Uncle Trenchard." "And Uncle Trenchard gave you the money to buy those dresses, of course?" "Yes. He said, 'Well, my dear, I suppose you'll want a new gown.' And then he gave a heavy sigh and took a banknote out of an old-fashioned red pocket-book. And then he looked at the note so long that I was afraid he was going to change his mind. And then he gave another sigh, deeper than the first, and handed me the note, a £10 note. I tried to kiss him the first time, but he didn't seem to like that, for he gave me a little peevish push and said, 'There, my dear, that'll do.' Funny old man. How many £10 notes has he given you?" "4 altogether. He always sighs just in the same way, as if every note was a wrench. He's inordinately rich, of course, but it seems to hurt him so to part with his money that I can't help thinking of that dreadful story of Douglas Jerrold's, The Man Made of Money, and fancying that Uncle Trenchard is unrolling a bit of himself when he gives away a banknote. "It's only such people who get inordinately rich," replies Sybil, plaiting her long thick hair into one massive tail for the night. "And how did you get on with Uncle Trenchard, upon the whole?" "Oh, very well indeed. It was so nice driving about in his new barouche, with a lovely pair of chestnuts, and feeling oneself looked up to by all Redcastle. And I had a splendid bedroom and dressing room, and we dined at 7:30 every day with 2 men waiting upon us. I used to feel afraid of them just at first, especially the butler, who looks the image of Mr. Grosjean the banker, and that took away from the grandeur. But I soon got accustomed to them, and learned to speak to them in an offhand way, just like Mr. Stormont." "Marion," says Sybil earnestly, "do you think Uncle Trenchard intends to leave us his money?" "Well, I should think he must leave it to us or to hospitals, and if we can't manage to please him, we must please him, Marion, and wind ourselves into this withered old heart somehow. It would be ridiculous, abominable, shameful for the money to be left to hospitals when we want it so badly. It's no use to enjoy the luxuries of this house, to take a £10 note from him now and then. That kind of thing will only make poverty seem worse to us afterwards. We must have his fortune." Her eyes dilate and brighten, her lips tremble faintly as she leaves off speaking, and then her face changes in a moment, and tears run down her wan cheeks. "Gracious, Sybil," cries Marion, rushing at her with a bottle of eau de cologne and a towel, and dabbing her forehead with perfume. "I declare you're quite hysterical. Of course we must have his money, if we can get it. What does the fidgety old thing come home to England for except to make our acquaintance and leave us his fortune? He has as good as said so ever so many times." Marion's sisterly attentions check that hysterical attack of Sybil's, and the 2 girls lie down side by side affectionately, after a brief formula in the way of evening prayer. Deep in the chill spring night, Sybil's head tosses restlessly on the pillow, and the sleeper's lips murmur sorrowfully in troubled dreams. "Alex, Alex, don't be so cruel, Alex. Forgive, you know, your sake. Yes, as much as for my own." So pleads the sinner's vexed soul, self-excusing, self-accusing, even in dreams. End of Chapter 8. Read by Adrian Stroat, Turks and Caicos Islands.